It's not just a case that it's anonymous and you don't see these people. You know, your lives are intertwined.
Welcome to Island Influencers, where we share stories of successful business owners, experienced professionals, entrepreneurs and community leaders based or with influence in the Isle of Man. This podcast is brought to you by Thornton Chartered Financial Planners, because great financial planning has the power to change your life. Now here's your host, Chartered Financial Planner Sharon Sutton.
Welcome to this week's Island Influencers. And my guest this week is Debbie Scrimshaw. Debbie is the director and co-owner of Paragon Recruitment and Workology.im, who are employment, careers and outplacement specialists. Debbie and her family moved to join her grandparents on the Isle of Man when she was 5 years old. Having left school at the age of 15 and told that to succeed in life, you have to work in a bank, so kitted her out in 2 Etam suits. That is what she did. Her substantial career in financial services, hospitality and recruitment has taken her off the island and back again. Debbie was able to buy her first house at age 21. She had her own side hustle businesses at 27, and then at 34, she grabbed the opportunity to buy Paragon Recruitment with a clear concept of how she and her business partner, Joe Wood, wanted to run a company, dictating their mission and purpose today. In lockdown 1, Debbie saw a requirement for a different approach on the island. She has created Workology.im, an outplacement business specifically designed for Isle of Man marketplace, providing career change and transition support for individuals and businesses, delivering much needed practical, emotional and financial support. Most recently, Debbie began work with the coordination and delivery of services under the Manx Restart scheme. The Manx Restart scheme has been developed as part of the government's economic recovery programme to help individuals on the Isle of Man who have been unemployed for 3 months or more, and to support businesses who wish to take on new staff. What's evident in Debbie's story is that both a personal and professional pleasure for her is to have the opportunity to make a difference to individuals from school leavers to senior executives. Here's this week's conversation with Debbie Scrimshaw in episode 38 of Island Influencers. Why don't we start by finding out all about you and tell me where you come from?
It's that horrible question that I always say to people when we sit down in an interview and say, so tell me about yourself. Yes. And I always feel sorry when they have to answer it. So is the shoe on the other foot now?
It sure is.
Right. Well, we moved to the island when I was 5. My grandparents were already on the island, so my parents brought us over for a better life, as it were. Yeah. From St Helens, a lot of the family around Prescott, Liverpool area, so where they still are over there to date. I went to school at Castle Rushen High School. I left school at 15, which was in 1989, a few more 15 years than I'd care to remember.
Gosh, yes.
And I was told at the time that to succeed in life, you had to go and work in a bank. And that was my ultimate aim, was to go and work in a bank. But at that point, Barclays wouldn't take on anybody who was younger than 16. So I had a few months through and ended up actually being offered a role with Royal Life in Castletown, just across the road, really, from the school where I'd been. So having joined there, I had a good few months there learning about different points. And then when another role came up in Barclays, which obviously was my aim because you had to work in a bank, off I went down the road and applied for the role in Barclays and started off in the Port Erin branch.
Yes, I remember you. a young thing out of school.
Well, I remember my first week at the bank, actually. I'd broke my ankle playing netball prior to that. Turned up for the job at the bank. And one of my roles was to take the post around to Port Erin post office, which I did with a pair of crutches at the time and a very big post bag. So it took a little while, but that was a nice introduction to the bank.
Yeah, indeed. So what happened from there?
From there, basically, I spent a couple of years in the Port Erin branch learning all about the REMs, the CCOs, the old days of the bank, finishing at 3:30, which was nice in those days. And then basically an opportunity came up where one of the investment advisors had been down to the branches and had actually said they were looking for somebody to join the insurance and the investments arm, and said, but there's nobody in the bank who's got insurance experience. And I said, oh, I have. And it started from there, really. So I joined the insurance and investments arm. Really keen to progress, took my investment exams, and then was offered an opportunity as a trainee advisor. Went through there, joined the team, and went from there, really.
Yeah, it was called Bisco, wasn't it?
Bisco, it certainly was, yes.
Gosh, so we those are the days.
Still see a few of the crew around the island now in different roles, which is great. So.
Yes, and you were saying before that you met when you were leaving the bank at that point, which was how long after you stayed there? Was it 12 years or something you were at the bank?
It's actually slightly different because I was at the bank. I was there initially for 7 7 years, but then I moved over to the UK for a little while.
Okay, well, why don't you tell me about that? Sorry to jump in there.
Not at all. So having worked on the island, an opportunity came up to move to the UK. I hadn't been to university. I'd never really been off the island apart from secondments to the Channel Islands or training in a variety of places. So jumped to that opportunity, joined the Halifax Independent Financial Advisors. I didn't ever meet Howard ever at that particular point, but he was a big character around the areas. So I joined the Halifax, based in the northeast of England. I was based in Durham, and I had responsibility for providing investment advice for branches really down as far as Middlesbrough and right up to Hexham. So it was a bit of a culture shock to arrive over there, get my, I think it was a mini metro company car and an A to Z, and find my way around the northeast of England as opposed to the Isle of Man.
Yeah. So what made you move off the island at that point?
At that point, it was actually a family move that I'd looked at. So my parents were still on the island. It was an opportunity to take, and I thought, I loved the island. I enjoyed what I did. But when you grow up on the island, there's always that yearning sometimes to experience different things, to try working abroad. I didn't quite make it abroad, but
had a lot of your friends from school, they'd all gone to uni, I guess.
That's right.
Yeah, so, it's pull, isn't it?
It is, definitely. Yeah. But I found when I went away, although I had a great time, I played basketball over there. I got to see an awful lot of different businesses, different people, different setups. But something I didn't realise that I would miss was walking down the street and seeing people that you knew. And it only happened one time in the whole time I was in the UK. I saw somebody from Port Erin and they gave a big wave, and it made me realise really what it was like.
Homesick?
Absolutely, definitely. Yeah. So at that point I thought, right, okay, it's time to go back.
Yeah, well done giving it a year or so though. That's
I learned so much. I didn't realise how much I didn't know until I worked in financial services in the UK.
Yeah, right.
It was a very different regime, a very different setup. So it was really interesting work.
Good. So you came back
to the island. At that point, again, family business. I was offered the opportunity to work at Rowney Golf Club as steward, which I did. That was an interesting time. I think in every role I've ever done, there's been brilliant learning, and also it really helped to sort of mould where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. So again, used to running your own business, the budgeting, the stock, the whole host of different points. If nobody else does it, then it's not going to get done. So after spending that time working in hospitality, again, I learned a great deal from there. I was offered my old job back at Barclays because at that point they were recruiting. So I went back. And sometimes at that point, isn't there, where you think when you do go back, there's some really comforting, great times, but there's also a reason that you moved on. And I think the industry had changed a little bit from that point. Originally, my role was travelling around the island from Port Erin up to Ramsey and meeting clients in different branches. At this point, when I returned to Barclays, a lot was telephone-based and email-based. So it became very much a desk job and something that I didn't enjoy as much as seeing people face-to-face. So at that point, I was looking around thinking, what's next? What do I want to do? And I saw an advert in the Courier on a Friday, had come up for a recruitment agency on the Isle of Man. I thought, okay, well, in financial services, what you're obviously trying to do is to meet people's aspirations in terms of finances. And I thought there's a lot of similarities really to recruitment and the fact that you're trying to find that role that fulfills the reason that people are looking to do, again, the people contact. And I applied and got it and didn't look back really from that point.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it was a big move. I remember you moving and thinking, gosh, how brave to go out and do it entirely, financial services for life for a lot of people.
Absolutely,
yours truly. But
absolutely. My mum was horrified. She couldn't believe I was leaving the bank. A secure role where she'd put me when I was 15, because that's what you needed to do. To basically, absolutely move through. And to be honest, it was the best move I ever made. I think it really took a lot of what I've learned. And the time at Barclays was brilliant because the training was fabulous. The opportunities were fabulous. The whole host of what you got, I think, really set you up. And I would always recommend that following that career path to give you that knowledge. And I think I joined Barclays at the time when compliance had really come to the fore. So for me, to have that checklist to follow and to understand what you needed to do your job professionally and properly, work well. And those were the fundamentals probably that I took into establishing side of recruitment.
Yes, great. So what happened from there? Tell me what happened next.
Gosh, okay. So we set up OSA. There were two of us initially. basically new startup on the islands, although OSA, as it were, already had an office through in Guernsey. So
yeah, but your office, where was the office that you set up here, wasn't it?
13 Church Street, just at the bottom of
bottom of the hill.
That's right. So brilliant premises.
Yes.
It still looks good today. And it was something that originally we took over. We just started with the first floor, but ultimately, before I left, we had 23 staff. We had a full training suite offering, I suppose, complementary training across the financial services areas. And then also a consulting team, a temporary workforce of just short of 200 people. It was a great business at the time.
Yeah.
For me personally, again, I'd always be grateful for that opportunity that I had and the time that I was there. But I always wanted a little bit more. And I think something that had been probably dangled in front of me was equity, and it was there. From the point that it was offered, I'd always wanted equity, because I like to feel that I have a little bit more control, as you know, in terms of the business. So when that didn't come to fruition, I had to sit and think, okay, what next for me? And it was at that point that I thought, right, okay, it's time to move on and to see what I can do.
Yeah, so what did you do then?
At that point, I was offered a position to take up as managing director of Hamblin, which I did do for a period of 6 months.
Yep.
Great group of people. Frank built a fantastic business there, and there were some really good people that were in the offices. And it was interesting seeing it from the other side, because I suppose at that point, OSA and Hamblin had been major competitors. So when I took that move, there were a lot of eyebrows raised, and it wasn't something that I took lightly. But I think there, again, going through, you realise that it's the people within the business that make a difference. There were great people at OSA, there were great people at Hamblin. But again, I was working for somebody else, and no matter how great that person was, it still didn't quite deliver what I think I'd be looking for, but maybe didn't realise at the time.
Yeah.
So at that point then, Paragon came up on the market.
Yes.
I worked with Joe Wood, who was the business development director at Hamblin, and I'd also worked with at OSA. Yeah. And when we were approached about that vacancy, in terms of taking that through, we thought, okay, should we do that? I thought it's an opportunity to be able to really put our own stamp on a business, to do what we really believe in. So, yes, we resigned. We ended up on garden leave for 3 months, which I think it rained every day. Why does that only happen to me and not to anybody else? But during that time, we were able to plan what we wanted to do. Took over Paragon, which we bought from Alf Cannon at the time.
Right.
There was a team of 12 temporary staff and 2 staff within there, and we basically took the business and developed it to where it is today.
Gosh, I'm interested from starting the business with somebody else that you worked with. What was it about the two of you that you knew that you would work together in a partnership?
I think going back probably to where I was managing director at OSA, it was, again, great people working within the business and some really good friends, but you're always on your own when you're a managing director. I think the buck stops with you, and it's a lot of responsibility to carry. I think Joe and I just basically complemented each other. So we both have very different approaches, very different styles, but we both believe in the same thing. I think fundamentally, if you have the same purpose, everything else sort of fits in. So the ability to run a business, but to have somebody else who you can bounce ideas off, who is as passionate, as enthusiastic about the business as you, that's something that's always spurred me on. So the fact that we probably knew each other a little bit, but not massively, but we respected the way each other worked, really gave us to create that. Absolutely.
No, good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and here we are today. Gosh, how many years later?
I know. We don't ask that, will we? Several years later.
Yeah, then we just roll on. Yeah. Okay. So, tell me about Paragon and how you've taken that further.
Okay. So originally, when we bought Paragon, our aim was always only to offer recruitment services. In the past, we've looked at, we said, training. I ran a guest speaker program, experiential learning. I learned an awful lot about developing communications, developing teams, high-performing teams. We work with a lot of boards on the island of businesses to actually help them develop as businesses, and we can see where they've gone today, which is brilliant. But when we looked at Paragon, we decided that recruitment was what we wanted to focus on, and recruitment done well. In essence, recruitment is a very simple business. You have people, you have jobs, you match the two. Yeah. But there is so much more that goes behind it, and we wanted to concentrate really on making sure that was our core offering. People that we originally brought into the team were people that we'd worked with previously before. So Marie, I'd worked with, she was one of my directors at OSA. Dean, as you know, Dean from Barclays, was the commercial manager at Barclays. So there are people who we've worked with throughout our careers that we knew had similar principles, wanted to work in the same way. And now, as I say, the team that we have, it's 11 people now, and I think 8 of those people have been with us for 5 years or more. So it's a pretty set team, which is great.
That is great. No, congratulations. It's not easy to build up a team with that level of, loyalty and trust
that, I think, as you say, two really key words there. And I think when you have that trust in people and you know that they will look after your business and look after your customers as well as you'd want to do so yourself, you know, you can't ask for much more.
Oh, that's great.
I was going to say that what's actually been interesting is as our team has moved on, although we had a really, I say, strong, solid, loyal, known team, so that at one point we were at the very peak of what you would class in terms of team performance, where you would automatically know what the other person was going to say and you would pick up where one left off.
Yeah.
As the business has moved on and we've now got really a multi-generational workforce, that in itself brought its own challenges to understand how to best motivate people, reward people, communicate with people. And that has given us probably again a new lease of life, because our clients are everybody from school leavers right the way through to senior executives. So to have a team that can adequately communicate and manage those individuals has been another challenge.
So you're matching people to team members all the time.
Absolutely.
It's very important. So what about all the things that you've studied along the way? I can see from your CV that you've done quite a lot of additional qualifications. That the FPC wasn't enough for you, hey, Debbie?
I think that was having left school with my GCSEs. And again, that's another irony, is because every individual I meet now, I have to verify, obviously, their GCSEs. And if someone was to say to me, what were yours? I think I would struggle not only to find the certificates, but to recall what they were. They were all above C's, I know that, but I would definitely struggle to remember what they were.
Yeah, sure.
So having joined the bank, I knew that professional study was the way to go to attain the levels that I wanted to. And when the financial plan certificate came up, 1, 2 and 3 in the old days, I absolutely took that. So that was interesting. I think the technical skills that I've looked at, so further to the financial plan certificate, I then did the recruitment and employment certificates, which clearly were key in terms of working in recruitment. But I then went on to cover the Institute of Personnel and Development and undertake qualifications there as well, because ultimately when you're working with HR staff day in, day out, professionally qualified, you want to make sure that you know what you're talking about and you're able to obviously contribute value across. So that was an area that I looked at. I think technical skills, absolutely crucial, but probably as important for me, and particularly in today's work, are the skills and the behaviours for workforce. And I think a lot of what people refer to as softer skills, but certainly business skills, in my mind, are equally, if not more important to do your day-to-day role.
It's a wrong description, isn't it? Soft skills. It's like, it's soft. Absolutely. It's the most important part.
Absolutely. Yeah, most definitely.
I guess during COVID, your skills were tested somewhat. What did you do? What was the sort of reaction to that with what you do?
Well, day one of lockdown saw the number of vacancies that we represented on the island drop by over 85%. So in terms of our work day to day, clearly it was a major shock. I mean, lockdown 2, we all knew what we were doing, didn't we? But lockdown 1 was a big shock, I think, for any business. Particularly when you felt you had responsibility for a team of people. You had temporary workers out working around the island in different businesses. There was a lot to manage and facilitate in those early days. Once we'd done that and got everything where it needed to be, and I suppose that was one point that really hit hard in terms of the Isle of Man, with a number of employers who really looked after their temporary staff. Because at first we thought, what will happen? Because obviously by the nature of a temporary contract, that can finish at any given point. The number of employers on the island who went out of their way to look after their temporary workforce, to set them up working from home, to give them the technology to be able to do so, to enable to continue, was really humbling. It was great to see. And so we will be really grateful for that moving forward. But once we had all of our ducks in a row and we were able to move forward, at that point, our concentration was on speaking to people to find out what they were doing, understanding where they were at, just really allaying fears, because there were a lot of people who were worried in the marketplace, facing redundancy, just not quite knowing what was going to happen if their role was secure. So we'd always offered outplacement services over the years, helping people when they'd been made redundant. But clearly we knew what was going to happen moving forward. We knew that there was a requirement for a different approach. So during lockdown 1, we created Workology, which basically is an outplacement service. It's looking at providing career change, transition support for people across the marketplace. Absolutely. Whether it's your first role or whether you're a seasoned professional, having an exit from a business that wasn't planned is massively emotionally and potentially financially draining as well. So it was looking to see what support we could give people, practical support, emotional support and financial support.
It was a great reaction. I had a look at the website before. It's very comprehensive, the areas that you've got there, which is
sometimes people don't realise what options are there for them. it's not just looking at the fact that you lose your job, your income, your sense of purpose, as it were. But it's very different every day to wake up and not to have a job to go to, just that structure and the different points. So we knew that there were a lot of people that we work with. We have a number of partners that we've worked with who provide support, as we mentioned, across the range. And we wanted to make sure that we were able to offer the advice to let people know that the support was available on the island, but also to adapt that support on the island, because what you may look at as outplacement in the UK is very, very different to the more bespoke requirements on the Isle of Man.
No, for sure. No, it's good. And then you did the inn as well, didn't you? With the work. So you're doing the what's the Manx Restart Scheme? You've been appointed to run that.
Absolutely. So that was when we returned back to the office and an opportunity came up to get involved with the Manx Restart Scheme. That in itself as a scheme, it's basically part of the Government Economic Recovery Programme to help individuals on the island who've been unemployed for 3 months or more, and also to support businesses who want to grow.
It's great. I was looking at it. It does look really supportive.
It's absolutely brilliant. And I think in terms of the individuals who have come through, the employers who have come through, it's been incredibly busy. It's been a really great opportunity to help people who sometimes only need a very little amount of help, but just having a body there to be able to do that can make a real difference.
So how many have gone through it so far?
At the moment, there's a cover, I suppose, of 120 placements. So ultimately, the initial tranche, we're looking at 120 placements. In terms of the numbers of individuals that are coming through, it's certainly above 200 for individual job seekers.
Great.
But also, what was really interesting was actually the number of roles that have come through. And we're not just talking about entry-level roles. We've got senior positions, we've got technical positions, we've got a whole host of really every industry on the island covered. And that was great to see, because the worry was you always have the angle of that skills gap, and you think, okay, when you look at the experience and skills of the individuals who are available, is that actually going to meet the requirements of the employers through the scheme? But what has been really helpful is that the employers that have come through, yes, it's there and there's financial support to actually help them to employ individuals continue to grow their business. But there's most definitely also a requirement to help people and to make the opportunity so that there being more flexibility in terms of the individuals that employers will look through and the opportunity that they will provide. So on top of that as well, there's actually a mentoring scheme and coaching scheme. So for any individuals that go through the restart process, there's actually also training, skills development, personal support, and that coaching to help them progress through that 12-month period as well.
That sounds very comprehensive. Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a great programme. If you don't mind me asking, and primarily I ask this when I'm in my role as a financial planner, what's your earliest memory of money?
Well, money, gosh. I suppose Saturday job when I was at school, I worked at the time for Avant-Garde and Splits, which were two hairdressers in Douglas, run by Marco and Colette. I still go there and have my hair cut now, so nice. I still have the same hairdresser, absolutely. But I think my mum got me the job because that's where she went to have her hair cut. Mentioned I was looking for a Saturday job, got the role, which was great. The reason that relates to money is because I would get the bus from Port Erin at 6:30 in the morning. I would finish by 5:30, hopefully at night, and then get the bus home for the princely sum of £10 per day, which was actually quite good in those days. But my mum always used to say to me, okay, out of that money, what you need to do is save a third. You have a third to spend on what you need to spend for your incidentals, and then you have a third really to enjoy and points from there. So at that point, I used to think, this is horrific. I only earn £10 and I have to save some, and then I have to buy, the things that I need. And then
you're a very dutiful daughter. Get the career that your mum tells you to, and then do the financial planning schools that your mum tells you.
Well, not only that, actually, there's another story. On leaving school, she walked me to Etam's in Strand Street and bought me 2 suits, 3 blouses, and a pair of shoes.
Yeah, you always looked $1 million back then. So well done, Mum.
Absolutely.
Yeah, not that you don't look $1 million today too. Just add that in.
But no, and do you know what? I think that's something that I've always really valued, is the fact that we have a really strong sense of family. Yeah. My family has always been there to support me, and they've always helped to point me in the right direction. Clearly I didn't always agree with that. Yeah. But I think a lot of what I've learned from having a strong family backing has really set me up for life, and not everybody has that, and you realise when you start to work with people through a variety of programmes and situations on the island that not everyone has that. So to be able to help people in the way that I was helped, I think is I really value that. I enjoy it.
It's really nice. Yeah, it's a good story. So all the things you've done in your life so far, what's given you the most fulfilment from both a personal but also Come on, let's do a business perspective as well.
It's a hard one, actually, I think. I mean, I obviously can't do an interview without mentioning my son, George, who's just coming up for 15. He's about a foot taller than me. And, he's absolutely brilliant.
So he's GCSE year, is it?
He is. So obviously he's had his challenges as well this year. Obviously seeing the school kids during lockdown and seeing how the schools have coped and what that's meant for individuals. But I think as well, I remember saying to him at the end of the first lockdown, saying, you're going to be working in a couple of years. And the fact that we've actually had this time where I've been working from home, you've been at home, that we've had the opportunity to go for walks every day. He loves cooking, he's been baking, I've been eating it. It all worked out really well. And I said to him, the fact that we've had this time, I said, it's just been absolutely brilliant. And he said, yeah, for you perhaps. But no, I think actually having had that time, when you look at any positives that come from the situations that we've been in, the ability to spend that family time while still
that's
working
lovely.
on the business has been incredible.
Yeah, that's really lovely. Yeah. What about business?
Business wise, okay. I think it would have to be Paragon. And I think probably because through the years, I've learned a lot for working for other people, and I've learned some brilliant business lessons. I've made some great contacts, and I work with people now who I placed 20 years ago in their first role. So it's interesting to see, people work through. Yeah. But I think at the same point, I also learned how, for me personally, things shouldn't be done. And it's the same for Joe. And so when we bought Paragon, we said, the reason that we're buying this is because we have a really clear picture of what we want to do from a recruitment perspective. Recruitment on the Isle of Man is very different from recruitment in the UK. It's often described as a sales role. And yes, there is an element of sales. You do need to promote the individual that you're representing to employers. But these are people that you'll probably see buying your lunch in Marks and Spencer's, or picking your kids up at school, or when you play sport over a weekend. So it's not just a case that it's anonymous and you don't see these people. Your lives are intertwined, and you will see them a lot of time. And that carries a lot of responsibility as well.
Does. Absolutely.
Because when I take on somebody's aims, I feel that I have to deliver for those, and that does play in your mind.
That's really important to actually.
It's exactly the same for your business, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, totally.
So I think we had a really clear picture of what we wanted to do, because for every individual who comes in to register with the agency, general statistics for the industry is that you may place 1 in 3 people, which is great for the one person, but what about the other 2 people that you can't find a role for? So we were always really keen to make sure that individuals who come through that we can't help from the roles that we actually have through the agency, that we're actually able to help them develop their own CV, understand where they can apply for roles directly, understand how to use their networks and to present themselves in a professional manner, to be able to find the opportunities that are there for them. So I think it's something that's what we set out to do. And every week we've run a job skills workshop for people that we can't necessarily place through the business itself. Yeah,
and I remember you guys. You were at every event I went to sign in. Here's somebody from Paragon to sign me in. I mean, what a great thing to offer to help a lot of these, lots of them charitable organisations to set, to sign people in. You've got enough to do when you're running an event. To have someone come and run your registration, that's a great idea.
Well, I think as well for us, we know we respect the people who've gone out of the way to help us, and people who have put their necks on the line, who've invested in us, who've really trusted us. And I think to be able, as I say, to look to help people and to give that back has been a major part of what we've been about, really.
Yeah, no, that's fab. Well done. For any aspiring then, or existing, I mean, you've already given away loads of gold dust, but for any aspiring or existing business owner or entrepreneur, what would be your number one business tip?
I think for me, it's the people, because no matter what business you're in, whether you have a product, whether you have a service, whatever you're doing, you're only as good as the people who are going to deliver that service for you. And I think for us to develop individuals with loyalty, with competence, with responsibility and with respect has been a really key point of how we've wanted to operate. What we've learned through that is that ultimately you can lay down every instruction in the rule book, but you're only as good as that person who will act on your behalf. So for any business, not only attracting the right people, but developing them and retaining them, I think is a real key point for any business. And that's obviously going to be the biggest challenge for people moving forward as well, is to be able to attract the right talent for their business and then to develop and keep those individuals as well. It's a common factor in terms of obviously the technical skills that we have, and the fact that any technical skill that we use, is it going to be an 18-month shelf life for it? So it's actually a propensity to continue to learn and develop and to use those skills for the future that's going to be a really key point. So I think to have a team to motivate them, but also to enable them to develop and to then develop your business, you have to continually innovate to be in there. So it's your people, I think, that you need to do that.
So what do you do to relax Debbie, do you still do basketball or?
The older I got, in terms of basketball and netball, the slower I got and the younger the people coming through.
It's not right, is it?
No, not at all. It was sport by Sundays, to be honest. So I really enjoyed team sports, and it's something I've really missed, actually, because I'm quite competitive and I loved going out and playing and winning, which was brilliant. And some amazing friends I've made through the years through both. Yeah. But yeah, sadly, as my knees have got older and I've got less fitter, I've looked at different different ways to absolutely. So I'm very close to my sister. She's 4.5 years younger than me. We do a lot of things together. So whenever we go on a new fitness craze, both of us do it, and then, both of us encourage the other to continue. So we wanted to try different things as time went through. So last year we did Zumba, which was hilarious.
I can imagine.
Great fun. Yeah. Great fitness, great fun. Yeah. But we've just recently started boxercise now.
Oh, so, wonderful.
I didn't realise how much I enjoyed hitting people. So that's a great stress relief as well. Outside of that, with my husband Mark and George, occasionally when I can drag him along, we've got a little Volkswagen camper. So we like to drive around the island, take the dog.
How great.
Yeah, it's good. So it's some great places on the island. We like to go and find somewhere peaceful.
Yeah, favourite place?
Oh, actually, recently it's been up north, as it were.
Up north?
Absolutely up north. So I think Rue Point's one of our favourites. I think that's waterlogged at the moment. But anywhere that's close to a cake or ice cream shop does me.
There's not many cakes at Rue Point, is there? Really?
Probably not. Actually, we do take our own as well. Yeah. Ramsey's a favourite haunt. There's a lot going on in Ramsey at the moment, so we like to pop through there.
Yeah, great. Lovely.
But that's actually a great thing to see on the island as well, because when you look at the opportunities, you go back 20 years and you'd say, okay, what job opportunities are on the Isle of Man? You'd say, well, there's banking, there's insurance, or there's hotels or cafes. And, fire forwards now and you look at diverse economy, the different opportunities, the entrepreneurial businesses, the owner-run businesses, and obviously the food scene as well, which has developed dramatically, which I do like to support.
Yeah, me too. Tell me, what do you think are the best things about living on the Isle of Man?
I think having worked in Jersey, worked in Guernsey, worked in the UK at the stage of my life that I'm at, I have to say I don't think there's probably anywhere better to bring up a family. I think when you look at the access to the walks, the beaches, the safety, the clean air, and then the really facilities that are offered on the island as well, from education through to healthcare, through to opportunities and support. I really don't think there's anywhere better. And I think really that's also testimonial to the number of inquiries that we see for people wanting to start a new life on the island or looking for work on the island. So,
are you seeing quite a few new inquiries? People coming over?
Definitely. I mean, the publicity that's been there recently.
Just a bit.
So it's something that we've always seen, but particularly more so at the moment. There's a lot of inquiries coming through.
Great. That's really good to hear. Of course, there are challenges. You mentioned banking, and last week we were filming this in the second week of February. It was Lloyds Bank with 120 redundancies. Challenges. What are the main challenges?
I think the challenges that we do have is that whilst obviously there are some businesses changing their operating models, there's always going to be a change in terms of how that comes through. That's also married with global skill shortages as well. So when you look at the skills for the future, the jobs for the future and where that's likely to be, there is going to be that change in trend from what was more traditional operational roles potentially to the new type of roles. I think a lot of the work, and going back to actually my study at the moment, I'm studying strengths profiling and understanding where you can develop your strengths and recognise those. And I think where fundamentally you might have looked at a job description or an industry, it's actually understanding the strengths that you carry as an individual and where they might adapt to take you for the future. So it's horrible because anybody who's facing redundancy in any circumstance, it's often a really trying time, and you'd never want that. But at the same point, sometimes it can be an opportunity to say, okay, what next? And there are other opportunities out there, but it's getting that understanding of yourself, of your strengths, and then really looking to see where you want to go.
That's a good thing for you to have taken the initiative to do that, Debbie. It's really valuable.
I think it's something that for so long people will look and say, well, to do this role, you have to have X number of years skills and this technical experience, this different point. But then ultimately, if you do need to continue to develop that knowledge for the future, it's, as we mentioned, the propensity to learn, to adapt, and to actually change as industries and opportunities change, to make the most of that as well.
Yeah, lifelong learning, as you say.
Most definitely.
Yeah. So what solutions and opportunities then would you see if you were, if you were in a position to change policy, what would you do?
I think there's a lot of brilliant work that goes on, and I probably didn't know as much until I became more involved with the Chamber of Commerce, with junior achievement, with different government departments to understand the work that's already going on.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of looking at where the skill shortages will lie, we're already addressing how we're going to adapt to those. And yes, we know that there will be a number of population increases that we need to maintain the services that we may want in terms of healthcare, in terms of housing, in terms of, the whole issues that will face us as a community. But I think ultimately for me, the most important point is actually to develop the skills that we have on the island and to look at how we can adapt those skills so that when employers are looking to set up a business on the island, when the inquiries do come through, we know that we've got the skills there to be able to offer a really solid place for business together with the infrastructure. Again,
well done with the Manx restart. That looks like a really great opportunity.
I think it's just something that, as we say, it's a partnership approach, and the fact that government are willing to financially support the full scheme, and also in terms of employers actually gaining that financial commitment, but then also I think underpinning that is the want to help people and to make a difference and to see where that goes, which ultimately I think is beneficial for us all. So brilliant. It's an absolute privilege to be involved in the scheme.
So what have you got planned next?
Sadly, like a lot of people, I think in 2020 we missed 3 key holidays. It was my mum's 70th birthday. We had a lot planned for a number of different bits. So like so many people, else, I'd love a holiday.
Yeah.
Because I think, as we've seen, not just with ourselves, but with a lot of people that we speak to, working from home, it's great in the fact that we don't have to make the massive 6-mile commute through to the big smoke every day. No. But also there's that point that perhaps you never turn off. So it does become a 24/7. I mean, I've always worked flexible hours. I've always had the ability to be there when George comes home from school. But at the same point, I'm likely to be answering emails or taking calls till quite late at night. That's the nature of my job. But I think when you were working from home, there was the additional pressure of running a business, looking after your people, dealing with different points at different times of the day. So it did absolutely feel like you didn't really get a break or ever quite switch off. So I look forward to the day that there's no Wi-Fi wherever I go and I can just have a little bit of a break from that point of view. But at the same point, I think it's also given us a really renewed sense of purpose, because our landscape's changing, the recruitment landscape is changing, and as you mentioned previously, the industries that we've previously worked with are changing, and it's looking at the ways in terms of how we can identify the skills that people need for the future, where we can source the talent, and where we can look to work with partners on the island to develop the talent locally. So it's also staying one step ahead of the recruitment curve, really. The UK's got a very different marketplace in terms of where their roles are at the moment, of where the opportunities lie, and I think for the island, we know where the key areas are that we're going to need talent for specific industries. So it's just looking to work with our partners, with our recruiters, to make sure that we have the information, the people, and the adaptation we need for the future.
Yeah, and how are you finding the work permit structure goes with that? Is it adaptive enough?
Most definitely, and I think I know that obviously work permits sometimes are a little bit scary for some businesses, but that's, I suppose, one of the elements that we offer. We offer a range of outsourced services as well as our recruitment side. So we do, for example, pre-employment screening, we do payroll, we do different parts, and we actually do support with work permits and visas as well. So for us, I think you follow that process, and ultimately, as long as that process is authentic and everything that goes through, you complete that form. For us, it's not really ever been an issue.
Because there's perception and then there's reality, isn't there? So
most definitely, and certainly over the course of the last 10 months, for the employers we've worked with, there hasn't been a permit.
That's great. That's really good to hear, actually. Yeah. Finally, moving on to a couple of questions. Any books you've read recently that you'd recommend to listeners as a source of inspiration? Or
a lot of my time, I read so much through everything that I do: articles, information, trading angles. We share a lot of information because for us, because we work with round about, I think it's just over 420 different businesses. Part of my job is to actually understand how that business works, what the industry challenges are, and to find out. So I spend a lot of my day reading, evenings reading. So a lot of my content is online at the moment. So I don't tend to read when I'm at home. When I go on holiday, I do. But the problem is, the minute I pick up a book, I don't want to put it down until I've finished it. So
there are some books like that, aren't there?
But the last few books that I read on the last holiday actually was the Tattooist of Auschwitz, which was wow, what a read. That was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
The Prison Doctor, which was memoirs of Dr. Amanda Brown from inside Britain's jails as a female doctor working in a number of high security jails. That was absolutely...
They're not exactly what you call chick flick books, are they really?
I don't think I'm very girly. I don't think I've ever been very girly, sadly. But and then we watched Narcos on Netflix. And so after that, obviously, Pablo's story was a read as well. So,
it's something that I have to watch yet. It's on a watch list, right?
So you look at that read and you say, don't have nightmares.
Okay. We watched on Saturday night, we watched Greenland.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, it's terrifying. I was like, it was just too close to real. Dreadful. Don't watch it.
But it's actually quite interesting because Mark, my husband, has mentioned he's graphic designer, runs his own business on the island. But his thing, he writes scripts. He actually wrote a short film which was picked up from Inktip, which just shows again from the Isle of Man. You can do anything, you know. The facilities are out there. He wrote it. He put it up on Inktip. It was picked up by a producer and ended up 2 years ago with him going out to Portland. And the film was made by a producer over there, so he oversaw his whole film being made.
Blimey.
It won 8 awards in the short film categories.
Fantastic.
So he's actually working on the full-length feature film.
Oh, is he?
He is. So.
Gosh, you'll have to send us the links to all the books and to the short film. We'll put in the show notes for anybody, anyone wants to look at it.
But the sad side is that when we do watch a film, he spends half the time explaining the camera work, which point we are in the script, what the technical angles of it are, whereas I just like to get lost in the film. But, but there again...
You could try wearing these headphones.
I could do, actually, couldn't I? But, that's an example that I use, particularly for those who are leaving education, to say, the opportunities from the Isle of Man are incredible.
Yeah, they are.
We're both testament to that, I think, in terms of where our careers have gone.
Well, there were glass ceilings, weren't there? And then the finance sector opened an awful lot of opportunities, especially for women.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No. So what's your favourite quote?
I know I popped one in there tongue-in-cheek because...
Go on.
There is no fate but what we make, and I believe it was John Connor in Terminator 2. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the Terminator films.
They're quite fun. I'll be back.
Absolutely. But no, I think probably for me, having grown up in a time where how you worked, how you presented yourself at work, the commitment, your behaviours, everything that went along. If you wanted to have a professional career, you had to, going back to that glass ceiling, as a woman, you sometimes, I think, had to work a little bit harder to get the same level to where you needed to go. And I think the structure and the way in which I worked to that point probably left a little outside because work was my life, I think, for that particular point. So as time's gone on, I think now, absolutely, I think probably my favourite quote is to build a life that you don't need to take a holiday from. Even though I said I need a holiday, we all need a holiday sometimes. But, I think we've said today, you walk through your garden here at the mill and you immediately relax and feel...
Yeah, it's the sound of a river running,
absolutely.
Sometimes faster than others, but yeah.
But you look at the trees, you look at the different points, the ability
birds.
to go for a walk, ride your bike, whatever you want to do in terms of how you work that. And I think to actually have that balance of being able to have that important health, home life, work, and still have that career where you feel you can make a difference, for me, I think is probably the most important. I think that's the point. We've tried to create a lifestyle where both myself and Mark work from home as well as in the office. We have the flexibility to be able to do what we want to do, to go out and have the walks, to go and eat cake in the van. And I think for me, most definitely, I think that's the most important part, is actually having that balance.
Thank you. That is actually very aspirational, very inspirational. We both started out our careers as sort of financial advisors, and you're told to sell the people the story of this pension where you retire at a stroke and give up work with this, a pension pot. Many people not enough to survive on. But it's not like that, is it? It's trying to retire not from something, but to something. So you still maintain, you said it right at the beginning, the sense of purpose.
Most definitely. Yeah. And I think, as you say, I also work with people at the end of careers, probably not the best way to put it, but people looking to transition into that next period of life.
From like the civil service, for instance. Yeah, I guess.
Absolutely. And then also people, as you say, going from very extreme careers and reintegrating into what you might class as normal life. And I think to go from a real full-on position to nothing is a massive step to take.
Totally.
And so growing up in, and as you say, training through the bank, I thought I'd be retired at 50. I'd have a lovely pot of cash. I should go on cruises. And then as life has changed, I can't see myself retiring because I think I would really struggle. I think I would struggle mentally. I think I would struggle not to have that sense of purpose in terms of doing what I'm doing. But neither do I want to dilute whatever business I'm working in by bringing, his historic views on in terms of where you get. So to have that ability to dip in and to be able to add value, but then to do the things that you want to do. I've seen too many people save up for that pension pot, retire, and then sadly not be there to take advantage of it. And I think, again, it's all about balance, isn't it?
It
you
totally
can't
is.
ignore it. You have to have that money, to have that quality of life, but also not ignore the life that you're living until you get that.
Absolutely. So, Debbie, where can people go to learn more about you?
Well, we've got the Paragon website. We've got the Workology website as well. We established a community jobs group a few years ago. We bought a page from somebody who set it up locally and developed it through. So we've got a Facebook jobs group called Jobs for You Isle of Man.
Right.
And that's basically like a direct community group. So any employer can advertise jobs on there, and individuals can say that they're looking for work, or they can apply directly. So again, it's just another way to look at a community focus. And there's just over 13,000 people who are members of that, and it's great because people will recommend jobs to people and refer people through. So that's really good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you've been kind enough to give us these links, so we'll post them in the show notes so that listeners can go and find these.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah. But thank you so much, Debbie, for coming in. I've really enjoyed our conversation today, and it's great to hear so much more and learn bits about you I didn't know. And no, that's wonderful. And you've shared some amazing points there, and a great story. Thanks so much.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to see you.
Oh, thanks, Debbie.
And we didn't talk about your bagpipe playing, but we'll leave that for another time.
No, let's not do that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Island Influencers from Thornton Chartered Financial Planners. To find out more and for useful links, visit thorntonfs.com/podcasts.